In this segment, we will discuss some of the challenges and opportunities unique to the African and Nigerian context, as well as delve into some of Dean Okonedo's insights on management education in emerging regions. Let's get some questions around the theme of this discussion, management education in emerging markets, initially with a focus on Africa. Currently, our presence, AACSB's presence in Africa is fairly limited, with 19 members, of which only 3 are accredited. How would you characterize the current higher education and business education environment in Nigeria, as well as the African region as a whole?
I would characterize it as still in the early stages of development. And the reason I say so is that management education is relatively new in the African context. Yes, we have had universities um, for sometimes up to 100 years offering degrees in business. But then when we talk about management education and the development of executives and managers as well, the earliest business school perhaps came up 35 years ago. Only in the last 30 years have we seen an increasing number of business schools. In Nigeria, for instance, for the first 22 years of our existence, we were the only business school. We had universities that were offering degrees in business, but when you talk about the full complement of what a business school offers, very few. I would still say that it's developing because only now, with increasing realization of the need to develop managers, traditional universities looking at the creation of business schools and others looking at the creation of independent business schools. Depending on what you're counting, the number of business schools, I would put it about 100. And when I say depending on what it is that you're counting, I'm not counting the universities that offer business degrees alone. I am looking at universities that offer business degrees as well as executive education and perhaps open enrollment seminars. I'll put it at 100. If you compare the number of business schools, 100 business schools for a continent of close to 1 billion, put it in context and compare the number of business schools in India that has a population of over 1 billion. They have thousands, okay, of varied qualities across there,
Sure.
but at least at different levels they're meeting the needs there. We have 100, which in my view is grossly insufficient to meet the needs of the continent as well. Also, with the business schools that operate, of the 100, I will classify them into 3. We have the top tier, who I think in character are more similar to Western business schools, perhaps in structure, in terms of the product and offerings that they have. Content and curriculum could be different, but they aspire to be players in the global management education scene. Then we have a second level that I would classify as aspiring to become those players, mindful of the need to serve domestic markets, but also knowing that we can learn some things from more developed business schools in other parts of the world. And then we have the third category that I would say are all others, that perhaps are yet to come to a full understanding of what the role in society should be, what they should be offering, how what they should be offering should be in sync with the objectives, or in sync or in alignment with the objectives of the population that they serve in terms of the government, what the needs of industries are, and so on and so forth there. So it's still developing, we'll still have some way to go.
Yeah, and given that there's only 100 today, the demographics are such over the next 30 years that there's going to be an even greater need. I think if you look at the UN population projections, globally, the population is going to increase, college-age population, by about 10% cumulatively over 10 years. In Africa, I think that same population is going to double over the next 30 years. How popular are business programs among university students relative to other fields? Or I guess the first question might be, college-age individuals in Africa, what percentage of them, or what are the numbers that enter college to begin with, and then of those, how many want to study business?
Okay. I will focus on Nigeria. We're more conversant with the numbers there. So every year we have 1.5 million, roughly 1.5 million applicants into universities. Of the 1.5 million applicants, a third of them, about 500,000, are admitted. Looking at the top 19 universities in Nigeria, in terms of the courses that most of those people are applying to do, medicine comes first, law comes second, business third, and then engineering comes. So in terms of the popularity, you have it. It's not number one, but at least it features amongst the top three of the courses that people aspire to go into. I think that there's more of a keener interest, not for undergraduate degree, but more for postgraduate degree in business. People come from different fields and different disciplines, but then aspire to be executives, aspire to be managers, aspire to move beyond their functional areas and to become generalists in management there. So there is more of a desire to acquire a second degree in business than there could be for a first degree. Also because culturally, across Africa, people understand who is a doctor, who's an engineer, who's a lawyer. How do you explain what's a business manager? You know, it's not. So perhaps there's also cultural nuances that affect what it is that you got. An economist, you know, there are things like that, you know, but then that seems to be a bit broad. I've heard it said. And then what are you when you come out there? You still have to go and do something else there. So that may make it less appealing than other professional disciplines.
So what do we need to do to make sure there'll be sufficient capacity in the future for students that want to study business in Africa, given the demographics?
Well, grow more business schools. Obviously, that's we need to plant more business schools. I think that we need to become aware of the critical need to develop managers. If we look at the companies that are expanding across the continent, even the multinationals that are coming there, and if you ask them the skills that are most lacking, it will be managerial capabilities across areas like problem solving, decision making, adaptability in the wake of policy instability in some instances as well. Therefore, there is a need to develop managers there. So, number one solution, grow more business schools. Number two, help the business schools that are in the third category to improve in terms of the quality, to be more relevant in terms of the curriculum and meeting the needs of the markets that they serve in order to do that. So it will be a strengthening, not only a growing of schools, but also a strengthening of existing schools. I think also we need to start to look at other models outside of the traditional schools in order to develop managers. So the management education sector, we're going through our own disruption now. But I don't think that we should be cognizant of the fact that there are also disruptive models in education and that go beyond the traditional business schools and the brick and mortar. We have to think about the ways in which we can bring the knowledge to people who live in rural areas, who may not have the wherewithal to come to business schools, or who do not have the time. So these are the things I think have to happen.
So another common theme that we hear in emerging markets is shortages of experienced faculty and the need for greater talent development. Can you address these two challenges and maybe a little bit about your young talent program that you've instituted to help address these challenges across Africa?
Yeah. I think that I think globally, my opinion is that there is a dearth of doctorally qualified candidates across universities. It's especially exaggerated in Africa. It is true. It is reality that we don't have enough doctorally qualified candidates. And I think that we have to go back a bit in history to understand why that is so. Under the need to provide an education to the teeming population of Africans, it was, okay, what's the minimum that you need to come and teach, and then come in, just get in there, let's just educate the people. But then we've seen over the years that this isn't it, because it has this impact on quality and other things as well. And several examples abound as to the shortage of doctorally qualified candidates. A colleague of mine, previous dean of a school in South Africa, told me about a professor in Rwanda that at any point in time was supervising 11 doctoral candidates. Given that this professor also has to teach, also has to research and publish, I sort of wondered at that as well. In several instances, schools have had to look to see what sort of collaborations could provide foreign supervisors to assist them, which is good in some way, but then it's because of the lack of capacity there. So there is a huge shortfall. I do not have the numbers, but I think that if I just look at individual schools and I look at the percentage of doctorate qualified to non-doctorate, I would say that in some cases, in the top cases, probably 70%. In the majority of cases, I would put it at 30-40%. In Nigeria, it is also true, which is why the regulator of university made a rule 3 years ago to say 70% of university professors must be doctorally qualified. At Lagos Business School, we've done a few things to try and address this. One of the things that we did a few years ago, 7 years ago, was that we created a PhD program, which we have just passed on now to the undergraduate school. But for the 7 years before this year, we created a PhD program in order to address the needs of the shortfall of professors of management in Nigeria. Fully funded our own social responsibility project in which we wanted to develop PhDs that can go to other schools, not necessarily for us to hire. The reason why we decided to do that was that when we started the school and after we became a university, just trying to find professors of management was that like looking for a needle in a haystack. It was impossible. We had to look outside, and obviously the difficulties in trying to get people to come to the school as well. And we thought if we are experiencing this problem and if we really want to do something to impact the society, then perhaps we should create this program, which is why we created it. But then having nursed it up until now, we feel that it's sufficiently matured for us to pass it on to the School of Business Administration at the school. But we do have a young talent program. It's also that being a professor in a business school, perhaps it's not as attractive to the school leavers who are going to college. They want to become doctors, as I mentioned, and things like that. A number of things have contributed to the perception that it's not very attractive field to be in. One is in terms of the comparison of salaries, and then thinking that you can earn more working in high growth sector like banking, financial institutions. The second is that we still have a perception that professors are eccentric, odd, queer. So too many people are attracted. People shy away from the field. So we decided to create a young talent program in which we selected 100 bright people. We selected 100 bright people, screened them further, and then brought in 40 of those to the school. And basically, we spend one day just telling them what the life of a professor at Lagos Business School is, the various things that they can do, trying to get them interested in a career in academia. But then because they go through a rigorous selection process, we're sure that the 40 that we have gotten are some of the brightest people. And from this pool, we then select people that come to do different things. Some of them have no aspirations to, indeed, almost all of them have no aspirations to become business school professors. But then we invite them to come and spend a day at the school, and then we go through them. From this pool, we've been able to select some research assistants that we've put into a program that we call the Management Scholar Academy, which we run for 2 years, fully funded by us. They get paid for the 2 years they're with us. They contribute in research assistantship. During this period, they go through courses in research methodology and things like that there. The students that we take in are fresh school leavers, people that we know are headed somewhere who we can encourage to go on to do their masters and hopefully enkindle in them a desire to return to academics, having stayed 2 years with us and made the connection. For others, so that's one stream, the Management Scholar Academy. For others, they form a pool of potential research assistants that we can bring in. Now, the whole idea we have at the Lagos Business School is that because in the past we've experienced hiring people, sending them abroad. Because they're bright and they do well, the schools we send them to end up keeping them, so they don't come back. And we think that perhaps that's because we hire and then before they spend any time at the school, we send them off. We think that if people make the connection with us and buy into what it is we're trying to do and what our missional imperative is, they're more likely to come back. So this presents to us a pool of 40 people each year that make the connection, a quarter of which we would hire to spend 2 years in the school and then go on to other schools to go and do PhDs, and hopefully some will come back. Even if we have only 10% coming back,
Right.
we will count it as success.
Yeah, that sounds like a great program. I know when I was a doctoral student, I wasn't taught how to teach. In fact, I was teaching while I was a doctoral student, and when I joined the faculty, I was immediately put in the classroom full time. I understand you do things a little bit differently in terms of new faculty members. How do you orient them to teaching?
Okay, so we take very great care about who we put in front of participants because it has the potential to affect a lot of things. We still hire from industry and then we also hire from other schools, principally from within Nigeria, in a few instances from outside Nigerians, but typically Nigerians. When we bring them in, for the first year, they observe and teach a maximum of 20 sessions per year, which is something like 30 hours. That's the maximum that they will do. Then we send them on to a faculty development program, the International Faculty Development Program, that's run by AACSB Business School, attracts faculty members from all over the world. They spend 5 to 6 weeks there, understanding what it is, understanding the case method, which is a main pedagogy, understanding different things, about teaching and being a faculty member. And then in the second year, we graduate, they teach 40%. So you will find that you won't attain your full teaching load until you're 3 years down the line. That way, you get a chance to observe. You get a chance, you're assigned a mentor, so you get a chance to sit with your mentor and go over how you would have taught the case. So there's really a lot of mentoring and hand-holding in the first 3 years. In addition to that, we have a peer-to-peer evaluation. So even for your first classes, a peer will come in and observe you in order to give you feedback. The good thing about being Nigerians and being in Nigeria is that we're not shy at all, not at all reticent about giving feedback and saying exactly how it is. So obviously, the faculty learns pretty fast, and we feel that that's an excellent way. So by the time you have a full teaching load, you are adequately prepared to teach. Because one of the key pivots of what it is that we offer is that teaching excellence is essential for the development of managers, and therefore we just focus on that.
Great. So it seems while faculty development is a challenge, you guys have some great programs to address that.